It's time we talk about something very, very serious. Raising the standard. Happy Tuesday and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. Of course, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join Inner Circle for free or download the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Guys, visit CircleK.com for details. I'm Anthony Totri, joined as always by nobody. Eric Ruby is still on vacation. Hope Rubis is having a marvelous time somewhere by the beach. And we do have Captain Redbeard behind the Mac. He is making all of the sweet magic happen. Do us a solid. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Emily in the chat. Eat, sleep, baseball, repeat in the chat as well. Say what's up. Throw up a little forks up as well. We got a jam-packed program for everybody. Today we're going to talk about the ASU Hoops matchup against a top 15 team in the country in Texas Tech. Take a look at those guys on the hardwood. Also, maybe a little factor cap at some point during today's show. Going to give a shout out to another ASU athletic team at the tail end of today's program, but we are going to kick things off today talking a little bit about the standard for Arizona State athletics. The bar, the ceiling, all of it was raised in 2024, or you could even say as recent as January 1st, 2025. The standard, right, at which Arizona State is judged and viewed, whether that be by the fan base or by national media, has been lifted. Now, there are positives and there are negatives to that, depending on which side of the aisle you currently fall on. For Arizona State, that is the cream of the crop. That is the new standard. Now, I'm not saying that every single program at Arizona State needs to be a national contender every single year, the way that Arizona State football was this past season. But what I will say is with that experience, with that spotlight that has been shined onto Arizona State football, the standard for them has been raised, right? Now, are we saying that the standard is now a national championship? No. But I would say the standard now is to be at least a top 3, top 4 team in the Big 12 every single year under Kenny Dillingham, right? And I think you have already started to see the trickle-down effect of that here in Tempe when we look at Arizona State men's basketball. And it's something we discussed a little bit yesterday about the talent on that team with Jaden Quaintance, with Joson Sanon, maybe with the expectations being a little bit higher for Bobby Hurley's team in year one of the Big 12 than Kenny Dillingham's team in year one of the Big 12. Now, I say this fresh off a show yesterday where we talked about Bobby Hurley and all of what's going on with ASU basketball and the stumbling that that program is currently dealing with in year one of the Big 12. I bring it up to say I feel like that's where the frustration really is starting to grow within the fan base. Is yes, we've seen this with ASU men's basketball for the last couple of seasons. Bobby Hurley ball, right? Start hot in non-con, fall apart in conference play. Some seasons find the tournament, some seasons not so much. But because of what ASU football accomplished this past season, I think everybody, and rightfully so, with this raised standard for Arizona State athletics, is coming down on Bobby Hurley. Now, it's not just Arizona State men's basketball when it comes down to it. You could argue ASU women's basketball hasn't been nearly what it's been with Charlie Turner Thorne at the helm before she retired, right? With Natasha Adair at the helm. You could make the argument that Arizona State softball hasn't been what it was with Trisha Ford, right? Now you look at other programs. You look at Arizona State wrestling. That is a program that year over year continues to be highly competitive. Conference, non-conference, doesn't matter. They're at a national stage, right? ASU football, like we talked about, there consistently. ASU hockey is having a marvelous season as it stands right now in the most dominant conference in college hockey. That is the standard now, right? When you look at other teams, again, and we're just pulling from a web here. When you look at Arizona State football at the top of the web, the top of the standard, you would say probably hockey here, wrestling here. Then from there, you probably go down to the other sports that we mentioned. And that's a web that not just Arizona State athletics, but every athletic department realistically considers, right? It's a standard for the athletic department. Jacob in the chat saying, Kenny absolutely proved we should aspire to be better with basketball. We have resources. I would say that it is not just basketball. There are so many sports at Arizona State that can be competitive, that can bring in revenue. Where's ASU baseball been lately? ASU softball, like we mentioned. Now, there's a fine line because there are some sports that year over year are dominant. Women's volleyball, as of late, has been marvelous. Men's golf has been fantastic over the last couple of years, but there are a few outliers here. And now that the football team, arguably a program that was dealt the worst hand of them all in terms of reaching that peak, in terms of reaching that standard, now that they have accomplished that, now that they have set that bar and raised the standard, the floor is raised as well for ASU basketball, men's, women's, for all of the sports here in Tempe. Okay? Jacob in the chat, a better coach with lesser talent wins against a team with more talent and a bad coach. I think that's totally fair. Jacob in the chat, completely understand, but sitting here for 10 years and just being okay, being middling, isn't what I want as a fan. Even if it doesn't get better, you have to try. You do. And I feel like we're going to get a very interesting offseason when it comes to basketball. Because in reality, I didn't expect Graham Rossini, his first few months, his first year even, to make dramatic changes across the head coaching landscape for Arizona State. But given the recent seasons that certain programs have had, given the level of frustration within the fan base, I think Graham Rossini is going to have to make some decisions, right? If you truly are about the next wave in the current era of college athletics, if you currently are investing in NIL, in the transfer portal, and so on, as Arizona State football has, does that extend to all the other sports? Do we hold football to a higher standard in and of itself than some of the other programs? And if so, why? Right? Jackson in the chat, ASU did a good job recruiting for basketball, but the injuries have been killing us more than the coaching has. I think you could make an argument for both. I think injuries has certainly played a role. Suspensions as of late, right, with BJ Freeman and Adam Miller. Talk about the injuries with Joson Sanon at the midway point in the season. Jaden Quaintance now dealing with another injury. Austin Nunez out for the season. Injuries have certainly played a role. But injuries are not an excuse. Every team deals with injuries. Every year, a team deals with injuries. Now, do some teams get hit with it harder than others? Absolutely. But it is your job, and I think Bobby Hurley would say this. I think every coach should say this. It is your job as the head coach of whichever program you are leading to be prepared in those moments, right? Adam Miller, suspended a game. BJ Freeman, suspended a game. This team didn't look prepared against an Oklahoma State, right? And again, I don't mean to pick just on ASU men's basketball. There are a number of sports at Arizona State right now that aren't meeting the new standard set by Kenny and the football program, set by Arizona State wrestling, set by Arizona State men's golf. And it's got to change. The question, I think, is, does it change now? Or do these teams and programs get another year? Does Megan Bartlett get another year with ASU softball? Does Natasha Adair get another season to try and fix ASU women's basketball? And the big one, does Bobby Hurley get another chance in the Big 12? Those are all the burning questions that I think Arizona State fans desperately want the answer to. And Jacob saying, honestly, ASU baseball is the more egregious, there we go, struggling program. Thank you, Jacob, for throwing that one in there. I would agree. When we are talking about Arizona State athletics as it stands in 2025. There is no excuse for ASU baseball of all programs to not consistently be in the NCAA tournament. Right? There is no excuse for a team of that historic magnitude who've had players go in and out of the league as much as anyone else, compete for championships, in conference, out of conference. There is no excuse for these programs, especially now, right? I say all this just kind of airing out what the athletic programs are, right? Bad, good, mediocre, whatever. I say this because the program that was at the bottom, a program in Arizona State football that was set on fire by its previous regime, took it on the chin for a year, went 3-9, doubled down, joined a new conference, and in a span of just 2 seasons was in the college football playoff, was one of the last 8 teams in college football standing, was a play away from being the Final Four, right? If they can do it, then so can ASU baseball. Then so can ASU men's basketball. Then so can ASU softball. Then so can ASU women's basketball. It's not impossible. But do you have the guy or the girl to lead the program? That's the question that Graham Rossini and this athletic department are going to be faced with here in the next few weeks, potentially here in the next few months for a number of sports. Ryan in the chat saying football and basketball are pretty different, though. The Big 12 in football is the worst Power 4 conference. The Big 12 in basketball is the best conference in the country. I think that's a valid point. But what I'm saying is in regards to the standard, right, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I'm not sitting here saying that Bobby Hurley and ASU basketball need to be a top 4, top 5 team in this conference year over year. I don't think those are realistic expectations. Now, mind you, you would have probably said that realistic expectations for Kenny Dillingham and the football team were not to win the conference, were not to make the college football playoff, were not to take Texas to double overtime. Nobody would have thought that those were realistic expectations. And again, I agree with you, Ryan. I don't think realistic expectations for ASU basketball will ever be winning the Big 12. But what are realistic expectations then? Being competitive, right? Beating a team in Oklahoma State that resides at the floor of the conference. Holding on to a 15-point lead over Kansas State. Beating teams that you beat up on in a half, right? Consistency is something that needs to change in regards to the standard with these programs. If you want to be great, if you want to be college football playoff level for all of these other programs, you have to be consistently good. Arizona State men's basketball is not consistently good. In fact, they are consistently mediocre. This team has won how many games in the Big 12 this season? Right? In regards to, yes, I get it. They've played Kansas. They've played Houston. They've played Iowa State. They've also played Colorado, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Win the games you're supposed to win. You go back to ASU football, and again, there's a lot of juxtaposition here talking ASU football and ASU basketball, and I love the dialogue that we're getting in the chat here. I really do. So keep throwing it in there if you have questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, etc. Right? As it relates to Arizona State football versus ASU men's basketball, Arizona State football, you can go look at the schedule for an 11-win team and say, hey, this team beat the teams that they were supposed to beat up on. And momentum was built. And ultimately, they took down some giants that they weren't supposed to, or that nobody thought they would. And yes, did they lose a couple games in hindsight that they probably should have won? Yeah, you could make the argument, though, on the other side that maybe they shouldn't have won, right? Maybe Arizona State was never going to beat Cincinnati. Why? Because their quarterback was out. Maybe Arizona State wasn't going to beat Texas Tech on the road. Maybe they were, right? These are all conversations. But I think you can strictly and very clearly point to teams and games for Arizona State men's basketball that they should win, and they don't. And not only do they not win those games, but it almost feels like they get embarrassed in certain ways, right? Embarrassment doesn't have to be a 30-point loss. It could be any variety of ways to go down. I do want to get to JJ's comment up a little bit more just in regards to the ASU hoops saying, let's go up just a tad bit more, saying disagree on ASU not being able to win Big 12 hoops. I think my follow-up to that is it with Bobby Hurley? Do you think that ASU can win the Big 12 with Bobby Hurley? If you're going to set the standard, if you're going to raise the standard, then you have to raise the level of coaching. You have to raise the talent. You have to raise everything. And that's how Kenny did it. He changed the culture. And that's something that was talked about day in, day out with ASU football, is the culture change. What does that mean? Being on time in meetings. We talked to Justin Watley, Keith Abney, all these guys talk about how much they love and enjoy hanging out with each other. That's the culture. Right? Establish a culture and the wins will follow. Right? Culture is not something that you just speak out into existence. Right? It's day-to-day things, hour-by-hour things for a program. ASU football got there like that. I think ASU basketball certainly can. The standard has been raised. It is time for everyone within these other programs that aren't meeting the standard to be held accountable. Do they get another year or not? That is going to be up to Graham Rossini and those within the Arizona State Athletic Department that make those decisions. A lot of great dialogue in the chat. We're going to continue this conversation and a lot more as it relates to Arizona State athletics, basketball, softball, football, but we are going to take a quick break. Look, I want to tell you about our friends over at Cult Cannabis, okay? Our friends over at Cult are now available at your local True Leaf with a huge variety of premium flower and a True Leaf exclusive magic marker. The Valley has been asking for her, and now she is back. Guys, visit trueleaf.com to find the local shop near you or place an order and tell them PHNX sent you. For me, personally, love stopping by True Leaf, getting the flower there. I have certainly been indulging evening after evening. I will say Colt Cannabis hit beautifully as I watched a little bit of LA Lakers and Utah Jazz basketball, watching a little bit of history there. I will say, as it relates to history, Colt Cannabis, turn on the Discovery Channel. It is chef's kiss, guys. Okay, look, a new True Leaf location did open in Maricopa on January 11th, adding to the list of locations that you guys can go get some premium flour. Make sure you get over to trueleave.com to find your local shop or place an order, and of course, tell them PHNX sent you. Now, look, when you're indulging in cold cannabis, I'm not sure you can find anything that goes better with it than Spanato's Pizza. I am personally a super fan of the Spanato's Red Zone Pizza. Go look it up on the website. It is top tier. Can absolutely take down an entire one by myself. Look, that's not all as it relates to Spanato's, okay? Spanato's Pizzeria is the place to be if you guys are a Suns fan. Spanato's is hosting official watch parties throughout the season where you guys can watch the game with the Phoenix Suns dancers and the Gorilla as well. Mark your calendar, Suns fans. The excitement starts at Spanato's. Get all the info on the watch parties and pizza basketball contest at SpanatosPizzeria.com. Spanato's, the official pizza of the Phoenix Suns. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate Connor, Cactus Johnny, Coach Stark Holmes, everybody being in here as well. Let's go ahead and get to some of these comments. Connor in the chat saying, raise the level of recruitment. Are we talking ASU basketball? Are we talking ASU football? What sport specifically are we talking about? Because I think when we are talking about Arizona State men's basketball specifically, the level of recruitment is not necessarily the issue, right? You just had the highest rated class that Bobby Hurley's ever had. Jaden Quaintance, Joson Sanon, Amir Ali. The recruits aren't necessarily the issue. ASU football, I think the same thing. The recruits you're getting are pretty dang good. And they're performing. Right? Jaden Quaintance, when he's in there, is performing. Joson Sanon's been a little bit hit or miss as of late. The same goes for Amir Ali. The talent's there. Talent's always been here. Always. You could point to just about any ASU sport over the last 15 years. They're not talentless teams. Now, are they Alabama football, Duke basketball level good? No. But doesn't mean they're not talented. Connor in the chat also saying the direction ASU football went, it should be the same for the other programs at ASU. Why can't it be the same for every sport? I think that's the argument I'm making, Connor. I think you and I are on the same side of this argument here. The standard has been raised. The ceiling has been raised. Now it is time to hold these other programs accountable. Coach Stark Holmes saying, afternoon all. I am ready for a coach that will build a roster that complements themselves. Some studs with great role players. I think that's another part that we don't really get into when we talk about ASU men's basketball, right? We talk about the offensive struggles. Do you see a system? Do you see plays? Okay, what's the talent like on the team? But what about the roster in and of itself? What about the rotation, right? It doesn't feel like Coach Stark is saying here, it doesn't feel like all of these players complement each other really, really well, right? Again, you've got talent. Does the talent complement each other? And when it comes down to the offense for ASU basketball, does the offense complement the players? Does it fully utilize all of the gifts that guys like a Joson Sanon, a Jaden Quaintance, and Adam Miller have? And if it doesn't, why? And how can it change? These are questions that need to be asked. It doesn't necessarily need to be fire him, fire Hurley. It doesn't need to be that. I think Bobby Hurley, like I've said a number of times, is a really good recruiter. I think he's a great person. Great with media. But I think there are some hard questions that need to be asked, right? In terms of roster configuration, in terms of retaining these guys, in terms of offensive scheme and system. And they're valid questions, given the fact that Arizona State can't win in the Big 12 right now. They can't do it. Ryan in the chat, because there aren't a lot of Dillinghams running around, the ASU isn't going to pay out the money for the big-time established coaches. You're right, and that's something we discussed yesterday. You're not going to just Poof, there's a Kenny Dillingham for ASU women's basketball, ASU men's basketball, and ASU softball, and ASU baseball. Kenny Dillinghams don't grow on trees, right? There are some programs that have them, and there are some programs that never will. I'm not saying that these other programs that we've been discussing don't have their version of Kenny Dillingham. But what I am saying is you don't necessarily need a Kenny Dillingham to raise the expectations, to raise the ceiling, right? Todd Graham was a phenomenal coach while he was here for a few seasons. He had, I believe, back-to-back 10-win seasons. He was not Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State, right? Trisha Ford for ASU softball turned this program into a powerhouse, into a juggernaut. She wasn't born and bred Arizona State Sun Devil, right? You don't need to have those things necessarily. Now, there are going to be established coaches that want to come here that eventually leave, like a Trisha Ford, because you can't pay her top dollar. Same thing goes for Bob Bowman, probably the best swim and dive coach in the history of the sport. Was Michael Phelps' personal coach. Went to Texas. Tough to match that money, right? There are going to be coaches that eventually move on to greener pastures. But you got to get those men and women in those positions here, okay? Even if it is for a year or two, to raise and meet those expectations, guys. Again, Kenny Dillingham is one of one. He's a golden goose. Not every sport has him. Not every program nationally has him. Is there a Duke Kenny Dillingham for football? Does a Western Kentucky have a Kenny Dillingham for women's volleyball? Maybe. But you know how rare those situations are? You know how lucky Arizona State fans are to have a guy that was born in the Valley, that loves Arizona State, that wants to win here, that's called this his dream job, that doesn't plan on going anywhere, and to make it even better, the icing on the cake, the sprinkles on the sundae, he can do it. He can do the job. It's a rare thing, folks. And you got lucky. And Graham Rossini made a phenomenal decision. Or I guess I should say Ray Anderson made that decision. Ray was actually the one to officially hire Kenny Dillingham. The standard's been raised. Now look, let's go ahead. Let's switch gears. Let's talk a little ASU men's basketball, more specific as to what's on the menu for Bobby Hurley and the Devils over the course of the next handful of games. Okay, starting with the Sun Devils matchup against Texas Tech. If you look at these two teams, and if you know nothing about Texas Tech basketball, let me tell you, it's good. It's quality hoops. We are talking about a team that's a top 15 team in the country, deservedly so. You look at their last 5 games of the season that they've played in, I'll go in order. They lost 82-73 to Arizona, another top 25 team in the country. They held Baylor to 59 points, won 73-59. They went to Houston and won by a point in overtime, a top 10 team in the country. They beat TCU, a team they should have beat, by 14 points. And then they beat Oklahoma State, a team they should have beat, by 10 points. They're good at basketball. You look at Arizona State on the flip side. You got the 13-point loss to Oklahoma State, the 1-point loss to Kansas State, the 72-81 loss to Arizona, the 2-point victory over Colorado on the road, and then the 15-point loss to Iowa State. It does not take a rocket scientist to tell you that these two teams are trending in completely opposite directions. Tech is riding the roller coaster upwards. Hurley and the Devils are on their way down, and I'm not sure they have a seatbelt fastened. And I'm not sure it gets any better. especially with the fact that you don't see just Texas Tech once. You've got Tech 2 times left over the course of the season, which, how many games do we have left here, Kyle? 9, 10 games maybe? Do we have an updated Bobby board? You got Tech, TCU, Houston, Kansas State again, BYU, Utah, Arizona, and Texas Tech. You're looking at, if my math is correct there, 8 games left in the regular season for Bobby Hurley's Arizona State Sun Devils. I see Tech, a ranked team, on there twice. I see Houston on there, a ranked team. I see Arizona, a ranked team as well.
BYU is good too.
BYU is good. They handed Arizona State, a 30-point loss when they played?
Killed them.
Start of the season. Kansas State, a team that's already beat Arizona State. To make matters worse, the availability of your 5-star Jaden Quaintance is in question. And it's especially difficult because if you watch Texas Tech basketball recently against Baylor, against Arizona, you can make the argument that, okay, how do you beat this team? Well, they give up a lot of points in the paint. They're a little bit smaller at that center position. It'd be a great opportunity for Jaden Quaintance, for Sean Phillips, to really, really eat in the paint. Now, minus Jaden Quaintance, Sean Phillips is going to have to step up. But remember, your rotation is already slim at the center position. You don't have a ton of bigs growing on trees. I do think Bashir Jihad is in for a big game. I think if you're going to need somebody to be a punisher in the paint that has the size, minus a Jaden Quaintance, Bashir might be your guy. And like Kyle had mentioned, I believe the other day, Bashir's been a little iffy in and of himself the last couple of games. This would be a great opportunity for him to really turn things around over the last 8 games of the season. Tech is a little bit smaller in the paint. Now, with that said, on the offensive side of the ball, they do crash the glass well. Kind of weird when you watch it that defensively they are a little lackadaisical in the paint, but offensively they crash the glass as good as anybody in this conference, I would say, right? So that's another thing that Arizona State fans, I highly, highly encourage you to just get your beers and your drinks ready on standby in your mini fridge, because you're going to be sitting there watching this game tomorrow night, just pounding your recliner saying, why are they getting these offensive rebounds? And you're going to think the moment you crack it open, well, Totri told me, this is what Tech does. They crash the glass. They also got 3 guys on this team that, if you haven't watched Tech basketball, they are a problem. Starting with Chance McMillan, who leads Tech in points per game at 15.2. Can shoot anywhere on the floor. 3-point specialist. He could take it inside. Phenomenal guard. Really, really like what he brings to that Tech team, right? And Elijah Hawkins leads Tech in assists per game, 6.3. He's a little bit of a sniper from 3. Okay? Easy. Drive, kick. Tech does it a lot. Again, do it just as good as anybody in this conference. They'll drive in with a McMillan, with a Hawkins. They'll kick it, and they've got the 3-point shooters to knock them in. You can't let them. You can't let them get hot. You just can't from 3. Otherwise, it's going to be over before it even gets started. And the guy that is probably going to be the one frustrating Arizona State fans the most in terms of that conversation that we just had about crashing the glass offensively, JT Toppin leads Tech in rebounds per game, 8.6. I want to know in the chat, do you guys think that Arizona State can get it done against Texas Tech? Captain Redbeard, do you think that Arizona State can get it done against Texas Tech?
No.
No, it was a quick no.
Yeah, nope. Texas Tech is really good.
They are really good.
They're honestly like kind of a sleeper team, in my opinion, like when we get to the tournament.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty deep. They have, Chance McMillan is the real deal.
Shooting 52% from the floor.
Insane. And we're missing some guys, and We've seen how that goes. We saw how that went on Super Bowl Sunday. Pretty awful. Honestly, one of the worst, probably the worst game they played all season.
Yeah, I think
And
that's a totally fair argument.
We might be in for that again on the road against one of the best teams in the conference.
And again, McMillan, not just 52% from the floor, 44% from three. He's shooting at an unbelievable clip. Res Devil saying, I believe. Look, we love having Res Devil here. If you guys don't know who Res Devil is, go to Twitter, go on social media. He's an absolute ASU legend, probably on the road somewhere. We appreciate you hopping in and listening whenever you can, Res Devil. It does mean a lot. But it's not just McMillan, right? We talked a little bit about Elijah Hawkins as well. He's not, a slouch when it comes to shooting the ball either. Right? He's averaging just under 10 points per game. As of late, again, I'll take nearly a double-double from a starting guard, from assists and points. Arizona State doesn't currently have that. This is a kid who's been kind of all over the map, from Howard his first couple of years to Minnesota to this being his first year at Tech. That's what I'm talking about, right? Is like this roster at Tech kind of goes back to what Coach Stark was saying, is like you can look at it and you're like, okay, I see how these pieces fit, right? It's a puzzle, right? Elijah Hawkins really complements the other scorers that you have on this team, really complements having a JT Toppin. Versus in Arizona State where you're like, we have got a farmhouse of talent, but man, it doesn't make any sense. We got goats in the pig cages. We got cows roaming the streets. You like that one, Kyle?
That was good. You got me to cackle and giggle over here.
That's what we like, man. That's what we like. And look, Elijah Hawkins, three-point assassin, like I said. This past game against Arizona, not his finest outing. 2 of 7 from 3, just 28%. The 3 games before that, 42.9%, 57%, and 40%. When he is on a heater, he is on a heater. Arizona State absolutely needs a little bit of luck to get it done against Texas Tech tomorrow night. Look, we are going to transition into Factor Cap. It does stay with Arizona State hoops. I promise. You'll find out on the other side of this break. Captain Redbeard, I want you to turn on your little Camry here because you got this super, super spicy one-of-one cap here. Tell the folks at home where you got that.
I got this beautiful hat at Branded Bills.
We went today. It was phenomenal. We had the opportunity to make some caps out there. That's how Kyle got his, guys. Elevate your brand with Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Actually getting out to go to the facility, see how the hats are made. Really enjoy some conversations with folks who are doing it on a daily basis. I'll tell you what, they are really, really passionate about what they do over at Branded Bills. And that passion comes through in the product. It is a high quality product that they have been working on for a number of years. There's nobody better in the hat game than Branded Bills. Make sure you head to brandedbills.com and use that code PHNX for 20% off your first order. Look, I want to tell you also about the folks over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Get ready to rev your engines for the $350,000 Lamborghini Lux giveaway. That's right, Captain Redbeard. We're transitioning from a boat to a multi-$100,000 Lamborghini. Look, this is how you guys can get in on the action. Every Friday in January and February, you guys are going to have the chance to win cash, free bonus play, or qualify for the grand finale drawing. Join them every Friday at 7 p.m. for those exciting drawings, and join them for the grand finale on Saturday, March 1st at Wild Horse Pass. Mark your calendars, where one lucky winner is going to drive away in a Lamborghini. I hope it's me. I really do. Don't miss your chance. This is your opportunity to experience the thrill of luxury and speed. Visit every Friday for your chance to win big. You do you at Gila River Resorts Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details, or check out the link in the description below. Jacob in the chat saying the thought of Kyle giggling doesn't compute. Kyle, you're a giggler from time to time.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes?
Sometimes you got to let out a little giggle. Life can be a little
Could be a
dull
lot sometimes.
yeah.
Is it ASU basketball that's a lot sometimes?
Yeah. I don't really giggle too much during an ASU basketball game unless I'm just laughing like, oh, there's no way we come back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Look, regardless of the result for Arizona State, Texas Tech, me and Captain Redbeard are going to be here holding down the fort, doing a post-game show. Good, bad, ugly. We got you covered. Okay, so that's why you need to hit that subscribe button to PHNX Sports. Turn on the little dinger, the little notifications for any time we go live. It's not just here with the PHNX Sun Devils, but we got our foes in Tucson, PHNX Wildcats, Cardinals, Suns, and so much more. Make sure you stick around, for all of that. I do want to get back into ASU hoops because that's what this is all about. It's time for Factor Cap, brought to you by our friends over at Branded Bills. Elevate your brand with Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Use that code PHNX for 20% off your first order. I need to know, right? Because it's just me and Captain Redbeard today. So I want to know from everybody in the chat. I want to know from Captain Redbeard, and I'll give my thoughts on this as well. But today's Factor Cap is Arizona State needs to win out, needs to win the remainder of the 8 games, right? Needs to beat Tech twice, needs to beat Houston, needs to beat Arizona, needs to beat BYU, Utah, and Kansas State and TCU for Bobby Hurley to save his job. Fact or cap? What do you think, Captain Redbeard? Does Arizona State need to? I'm not saying that can they, but do they need to? Is that what it will take for Bobby Hurley to get another season in Tempe?
It certainly would make it look a little better, Yeah. And I could see that argument being made. Like, wow, look at us. The last, 8-10 games we won. We beat some great teams. And, Bobby's going to recruit again, and we're going to do it all over again next year. Just kind of going off the hype the last 10 games. But I think this is cap. I think that
really?
I think ASU needs to move on. I mean, he's been coaching for a decade. We've tried this. If this was like the Premier League, he'd be gone after a year. They get sacked after a year if they don't play well or they don't coach well. And we've seen it all year. Like, yes, the team's been fatigued, but also there needs to be something better from the coaching perspective, in my opinion. Yes, you're in the new conference for the first year, but at the same time, we should be better than bottom of this conference. I think that's not very acceptable, and so they're going to have to make some changes, in my opinion.
I would agree. David S. in the chat saying cap. Let's see. Res Devil says, if everyone was healthy and available, I would say fact. I think that's another interesting point to bring up, right, is the health of some of these guys. Again, I don't expect to see Jaden Quaintance against Tech. We might not see him for a little bit dealing with an injury. Like, is that something that you have to consider when we're looking at the whole and the totality of this situation with Arizona State hoops? For me, when we ask this question is, does, factor cap Arizona State needs to win out to save Bobby Hurley's job? I would say that's fact. I think Arizona State needs to go 8 of 8 for Bobby Hurley to get another try in the Big 12 for 2025-2026. Because if they don't, right, then what are we looking at? The totality of this season. It's been a failure. Right? And we said at the start of the year, when you got Quaintance, when you got Sanon, when you got BJ Freeman, when you got Alston Mason, what did we say? We said that you have now the tools. You have the 5 stars. You have the blue chip guys. You got a big. You got a shooter. You got a point guard. You have a returning player or two from this team last year. You have the pieces. What you can't do is fall flat on your face. And that's what they've done. So I don't think going 4 of 8 or 6 of 8 gets it done. I think going 8 for 8, beating Tech twice, beating Houston, beating Arizona at their house, on top of sprinkling in the wins over a Kansas State, over a TCU, over a Utah, I think that would be enough. That would be enough for Bobby Hurley to get another year. Because like Kyle said, it would be, hey, look what we did, right? We found a way to dig ourselves up out of the slump, out of the mud, in a bad conference, and win some games. Not just winnable games, but games against teams that are tournament teams, against high-seeded tournament teams. It's going to take that if Bobby wants to keep his job. And I know he does. I know Bobby loves Arizona and he wants to win here in the Valley. And I respect that. And I think Arizona State fans should respect that. But you need the results, right? It's a result-based industry. Okay? Everybody loved Kenny, right? They loved him a little more when they went to the Peach Bowl as opposed to the 3-9 season, right? That's just how it goes in sports. Like Kyle said, if Bobby was a coach in a different league, of a different sport, would these results get you a decade? They certainly don't in professional sports. Find me a coach in the NFL, the NBA, or MLB that's been there for 10 years and made the postseason, what, 3 times? In a 10-year span? They don't exist. Why? Because winning brings in money. Money brings in really good players, really good coaches, really good facilities. Got to win. And for Arizona State and Bobby Hurley, you got to win the next 8 to cool off that hot seat. Res Devil in the chat, does retaining the stars mean anything? Do you think it does, Kyle? Do you think if you were to guarantee retain Quaintance and Sanon for another year, does that get it done?
It's better than nothing, you know? Like, if we get him for another year, once again, I could see this argument. I could see, we get another year to, build on these players. We obviously saw the talent, and, they could be great this next year. And if they are, then they were right? Yeah. Giving them another year. But I don't know. It doesn't give me too much hope. It's 2 players. One of them's injured now. One of them played well for the first 10 games. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's an interesting point to the argument. Again, kind of like the health thing, right? Does the health part, the fact that some of these guys haven't played entire seasons, that, they've missed some key games, does that impact it? Does that impact where the coach is? Maybe. Does it impact it as much as if it was a football that we were talking about, right? If Sam Levitt missed 5 games instead of 1, if Scat missed 4 games instead of 1, are we judging the season differently? Probably, right? For Arizona State, it doesn't feel like that same grace is there, though, because Arizona State won without those guys. The one game that Cam Scatterbo didn't play, Arizona State won. Now, the Sam Levitt situation is different, right? They didn't win that game on the road. It's an interesting point that you guys in the chat are bringing up. So I appreciate that. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Look, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to a sport that we used to talk a ton about on this program, and I want to start doing it again, but we are going to take our final break. Look, you could trust me. You can definitely trust Captain Redbeard. You could trust Jacob Franklin in the chat, but you could combine all of us and you wouldn't nearly be able to trust us as much as you guys can trust our friends over at Desert Financial Credit Union. They are the official retail banking partner of Arizona State University. And the reason that you guys can trust them is if you add up our lifespans, me, Jacob, and Kyle, it wouldn't even get to how long DFCU has been doing what they do. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest and most trusted local credit union, dedicated to creating those exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. You guys can turn to DFCU for checkings or savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. Now is the time to show your ASU team spirit. Open a free checking account online and get $200 plus your choice of 3 Arizona State University Visa debit cards. Go to desertfinancial.com/ASU to get started. Captain Redbeard, would you say that the number 150,000 is large?
Yeah.
Well, look, our friends over at Waymo, they do 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. And for everybody here in the Valley, I'm not sure that there is a bigger Waymo fan and supporter than the Arizona State football coach, Kenny Dillingham. Check out his Instagram lives. He's going live from the back of a Waymo. Look, you guys could do the exact same, okay? They're the first company to serve a fully autonomous ride with no human behind the wheel in 2015, okay? Waymo has over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience. That's enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times. Download the Waymo One app and ride today. Hit that like button. Do it. Do it right now. Please. Captain Redbeard, hit that like button.
I will.
You did? Got it.
Yep.
Love it. Absolutely. Love it. Really do appreciate everybody hopping in the chat today. Res Devil, Jacob, David, Coach Stark Holmes, the long list of you guys that are listening on audio. For those of you that are just watching and not commenting, appreciate you just as much as well. And look, it's time to give a little shout out to Arizona State softball. Arizona State softball started the season 3-1 so far, coming off a big win over the Cal Bears. Kind of weird that you're not going to see Arizona State going up against Cal in Pac-12 play any longer, but the Sun Devils, I would say, are off to a hot start, given the fact that this team last year wasn't necessarily where you wanted it to be, right? We had this conversation at the top of the show about the standard, about the ceiling, about the floor being raised, and from Trisha Ford to Megan Bartlett, it hasn't been the easiest and smoothest transition in terms of success. But through the first 4 games of the season, I would say things look good. Now, the one thing that's not very good is Yanixa Acuna. Now, she's a great talent. Unfortunately, she does have, I believe, a broken hand. So that is why she is not actually taking at-bats. However, little pinch runner action. Absolutely take that out of the speed demon Acuna. Oh, and, friend, family of the program here, Kelsey Hall, who is back after dealing with an injury the tail end of last season. She currently leads ASU softball in hits. You love to see it from our dog, Kelsey Hall. Again, she was doing a ton of great work for us during the football season. During the summer, she was coming on. We'll definitely have to get her back on, talk about the season ahead. Realistically for Arizona State, again, only 4 games in, a lot of softball left. Also, a little shout out to Kenzie Brown. You look at this past series for Arizona State. She pitched 10.2 innings. How many strikeouts you think she had, Captain Redbeard, or did you already look?
I might have looked.
You might have looked. 19. Try 19 strikeouts to 1 earned run. Is that good for a ball and bat sport, Captain Redbeard?
That's great.
That's great. That's what Kenzie Brown is doing on the mound. Now, look, if you have nothing to do, if you are asking yourself, how should I spend February 13th? Maybe you don't have a Valentine and you're looking for something to do February 14th. Maybe you've got an open Saturday or an open Sunday. Well, the 2025 Littlewood Classic at Farrington Softball Stadium. Did you know that is in Tempe? Club Farrington. You've got a ton of ASU softball ahead. The Sun Devils taking on the Oregon Ducks Thursday evening. They got North Dakota and Weber State on Friday. They got the Washington Huskies on Saturday, along with Belmont and Utah Valley on Sunday. A ton of softball for you Arizona State fans to get into go support them. I'm sure you're going to see ASU football out there. ASU football is out supporting every sport. Tennis, I've seen them do basketball, swim and dive. They are everywhere trying to activate the Valley the way that their coach has stamped across Arizona State. And I think the fan base can do the absolute same, especially with a program in Sun Devil softball that is rich in history, right? And is desperate to really get back to where they were, right? Desperate to get back to hosting super regionals and, going far in the NCAA tournament. It's going to take the fan base too. The same way that the fan base showed up and showed out for ASU football, this team right now for ASU softball, they're hot. 3-1, I know it's early. I know there's a lot of softball left, but get out there, go, show up, show out for Club Farrington, show up for Kelsey Hall, for Acuna, for Kenzie Brown, for all the dogs on that ASU softball team. Show up and show out. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Couple of housekeeping things. Like I said, if you just popped in, we're going to be doing a post-game show Wednesday evening for Arizona State taking on Texas Tech. Like I said, we'll be there for the good, the bad, the ugly. Maybe me and Captain Redbeard will switch things up, and I'll be behind the Mac making the magic happen, and he'll be right here staring at you guys. Do you think that's something that maybe we could conjure up, we could manage?
We'll see how the game goes.
We'll see how the game goes. I think that's a fair assessment. ASU basketball also with a game Saturday evening. Kyle, do you know what you and I will be doing on Saturday evening?
We will be watching the game.
We will be. We will be watching the game, and we'll be doing a post-game show for that one as well. So make sure that you guys are here for that. It is going to be a ton of fun. Look, if they win, it's a party. If they lose, it is needed therapy for all of us here at Arizona State. Look, before we get out of here, also want to let you guys know about how you can become a PHNX diehard. It is super, super easy. I've seen some diehards already in the chat as well. Just head to gophnx.com, click the little diehard tab, and it's going to tell you everything that you need to know about becoming a PHNX diehard. You're going to get access to that diehard Discord, where we have a lot of PHNX diehards, not just talking about Arizona State, but they are talking about the Wildcats. They're talking about the Big 12. They're talking about what the Cardinals are going to be doing in the upcoming draft. They're talking about how the Suns fix whatever the heck the Suns got going on. People getting ready for spring training and Diamondbacks baseball. The list continues to go on and on. Not to mention, when you become a diehard, you're going to get a free t-shirt or hat every single year. Okay, go check out the locker, go explore that merch, and if there's something you like, well, just become a diehard and you're going to get that shirt or hat for free, and you get a new one again every single year. You're going to get exclusive diehard only content from our dream team of writer Gerald Bourget. Okay, you're also going to get discounts on events, on merch, and so much more. Again, go PHNX.com, click the little diehard tab. It's going to tell you everything. Anything that I left out or missed out, the website has you covered. Did I miss anything, Captain Redbeard? Anything at all?
I put a poll in the chat 22 minutes ago.
Okay.
If ASU would win tomorrow against Texas Tech. Have you looked? What do you think the chat thinks? Do you think they're going to win or lose?
I think they're going to lose. But I think it's probably like 90% to 10.
It is 50-50 right now.
50-50?
50 people think they're going to win. 50% think they're going to win. 50% think that they're not going to win tomorrow.
Wow.
So we're split 50-50. We got some people believing in there.
There's a lot of belief. I see Res Devil saying that he believes and that we believe. I'm all for belief. I'm all for it. Okay? What Journey say? Don't stop believing. How'd that sound?
I'm crying over here.
Yeah. Guys, that is going to do it. We appreciate everybody hopping in. Leave a like on your way out. If you enjoyed the content, give us a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me and my bald head at Anthony_Totri. You can follow the captain of this beautiful vessel, of course, at KCoop Sports. That is Captain Redbeard. And like I said, we'll be back in action on Wednesday evening. But salutations, go Devils. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.